In 2012, my daughter and I visited the USS Fort Mc Henry that was on a courtesy visit to Dublin Harbour.
On board were 350 sailors and 180 Marines. They were here to see an American football game, the Emerald Classic, between Notre Dame University's Fighting Irish and the US Naval Academy. The crew were very welcoming and polite. The Marines showed us their weaponry. It was a day where every man visiting was truly a little boy.
After the visit, I was intrigued as to how many personnel were in the US military, and when I looked it up, I was surprised to find that over 1 million people serve in the US Armed Forces. This is in comparison to our own defence forces, which numbers just over 8,500 personnel. But this is their story.
At the end of the Civil War in 1922, the new Irish state set about providing a legal status for its armed forces. On October 1st, 1924, the Irish Defence Forces, or Óglaigh na hÉireann, Soldiers of Ireland, as it was officially known, was formally established. All members of the Defence Forces wear this cap badge, which was originally adopted by the Irish Volunteers in October 1914 as the official badge of the organisation. Their centrepiece is formed of the letters FF. These signify Fianna Fáil. The word Fianna is a name given to an ancient military organisation around the 3rd century AD. The word Fáil means destiny, so Fianna Fáil means soldiers of destiny. The 1916 rebel Padraig Pearse dreamed of an Irish army combining, like the Fianna of old, Gaelic culture with all Gaelic reverence for magnanimous courage, justice and honour. To this end, all orders given on the parade ground are delivered in Gaelic. At the outbreak of World War II in September 1939, the Defence Forces mobilised at a strength of less than 20,000. This became known as the emergency in Ireland. A recruiting campaign began and an effective fighting force was quickly developed. In May 1941, the strength of the emergency army had reached a high point of almost 41,000, and in June 1943, the local defence force reached a strength of 106,000. Ireland was neutral during World War II, but it is said with a small n. For example, the Irish Weather Service gave the Allies the forecast from the west coast of Ireland that enabled the D-Day landings to be rescheduled for June 6th, as bad weather had cancelled the original date of June 5th. At the end of the emergency, the strength of the Defence Forces was reduced, and by March 1947, strength had dropped to 8,803. In 1969, the outbreak of violence in Northern Ireland marked the start of an intense period by all elements of the Defence Forces. The emphasis was now placed on internal security operations, especially on the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. The tasks for the Defence Forces at this time included the provision of permanent guards and vital installations, the provision of armed parties for escort of cash, explosives and prisoners. Ireland became a member of the United Nations in 1955 and in 1958 sent military observers on a UN mission to the Middle East. This was the beginning of the Defence Forces' involvement in overseas service for the UN in conflict areas such as the Congo, Cyprus, Lebanon, Liberia, Kosovo, Iran and Iraq, East Timor, Somalia, Chad and Syria. Overseas service highlighted many shortcomings. As a result, pay and conditions improved and equipment was modernised. To date, over 84 soldiers lost their lives while serving for the UN, a mission that found Irish soldiers under hostile fire many times, and in many cases without the ability to fire back. In 2020, the UN Secretary-General said of Ireland, quote, "We deeply appreciate your country's uninterrupted commitment to United Nations peacekeeping. You may be one of Europe's smaller countries, but you are one of its largest troop and police contributors." In fact, Ireland has had over 70,000 individual tours of peacekeeping duty by members of the Defence Forces. It is the longest unbroken record of any army in the world. The Defence Forces amassed a wide range of skills and experience in peace support operations, so much so that a United Nations training school was established in 1993 on the Curragh of Kildare. It conducts courses for all missions abroad and for students from other armed forces. Along with the Army, there are the smaller units of the Naval Service and Air Corps. The Naval Service has 9 ships, of which 5 are operational. Their role is fishery protection, drug and weapons interdiction, search and rescue, and like the Army, humanitarian aid. The Air Corps has a fleet of 20 aircraft and carry out traditional military roles as well as civilian duties such as search and rescue, air ambulance and firefighting. Today's Army has a Special Forces unit called the Ranger Wing. In 2015, a sniper team from this unit made history after they became the first non-USA team to win the US Army's International Sniper Competition against 37 sniper teams, many from international armies. But there are problems. The Irish Air Corps lacks a dedicated air intercept capability, and previous air incursions into Irish airspace have seen the Royal Air Force respond to and escort unwelcome aircraft out of Irish-controlled airspace, and the Defence Forces has suffered from losses in personnel, and recently were reports of naval patrols unable to leave port due to low levels of crews available. In 2022, a report on the Defence Forces found that, quote, that maintaining the status quo upon this level would leave the Defence Forces unable to conduct a meaningful defence of the state against acts of aggression from conventional military forces. Among recommendations were, quote, a radical level of ambition would give Ireland the military capabilities of similarly sized countries in the EU and would require an increased budget of 2.5 to 3 times its current size. It would see the Defence Forces naval vessels increased from 9 to at least 12 and the acquisition of a squadron of combat aircraft.
When I was 17, I enlisted in the Irish Army Reserves for 3 years. This was a rite of passage for many thousands of young Irishmen throughout the decades, and from the 1990s onwards for many thousands of young Irish women. And we all got a taste of military life on a part-time basis with the Irish Defence Forces.
I joined an organisation in the 1980s that was weak from government budget cuts. We stayed in barrack rooms little changed from those when British soldiers had stayed in them decades earlier. As a reservist, I was mocked as a weekend warrior, told I was in Dad's army and only good for use as a sandbag. But the dedication of the part-time officers and men truly impressed me. I decided to throw my heart into it and went to every training weekend I could. I even enjoyed the forced solitude of sentry duty. The only job I disliked was what was called the butts. This was a wide trench used on the firing ranges. We had to mark the bullet holes in the target to show where their shots had hit. I will never forget the sound of the bullets striking the backstop behind us, like a salvo of sledgehammers thumping the bank. An experience like this crushed the ideas of what you had seen in Hollywood movies.
And so I spent my last day in the Army Reserves in an old Land Rover like this. It was a beautiful May evening and we were travelling to the rifle range for one last time. It also happened to be my last day in college, and I was happy because the following week I was travelling to America to work for the summer on a student visa. But I'm always thankful to the Irish Defence Forces for giving me the experience and showing me the destructive power of even the most basic World War II era infantry weapons. It's a lesson and an experience I've never forgotten.
Thank you for watching, but please like and subscribe, as this will encourage future productions.